Okay, I asked the kids. Now, I was really surprised when one of the kids went to $1 million rather quickly. If you could bring up the first slide. There it goes. I asked the kids, what makes you rich? And someone got $1 million. You know, I've asked some other kids that, and what did I get? $10. $1, a quarter, doesn't make any difference. Riches is relative, isn't it? And you know, when we're 5 years old, 25 cents or $1 is a lot of money. When you get to be a teenager, you still think, well, $100 is a lot of money, and it kind of sort of is. But then, when you've got to go out and do your real, honest-to-goodness shopping for the first time. I remember our oldest son called me up and said, Dad, do you know how expensive peanut butter and sugar frosted flakes are? Son, yes, we do. It is amazing. But here's the cool thing. I was doing some research, and when you ask people, what is it? How much money do you need to be wealthy or rich? To be wealthy or rich. There was a study done that asked people that had $100,000 in total assets. Total assets. Are you wealthy or rich? 50% of them responded no. 50% thought they were. They then asked people that had $1 million in assets. Are you wealthy or rich? What do you think the response was?
No.
50% said no. They then asked people that had $5 million in assets. Do you consider yourself wealthy or rich? What was the response? 50% said they were not wealthy or rich. Because you see, the more you get, the more you want. So UBS then did a study, and they wanted to know what people thought they needed in order to be considered wealthy or rich. And it ended up, they couldn't get a number. So they then had to quantify it, and their results were, and I quote, having no financial constraints on activities, end quote. To have enough money to have no financial constraints on activities. When is that enough? And Leah's going, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, you keep upping it. Because you want a bigger jet, or a faster jet, or something that can get you to the furthest reaches of the earth, or whatever. You always want more. Wealth and money can be a real issue. And yet it's interesting that in the church, anytime I talk about money, people start to get upset. Preacher, you're not preaching, you're meddling. I start out with remembering this. Jesus wrote more about money than he did about heaven and hell combined. Got that? He wrote more about money and spoke more about money than about heaven and hell combined. Obviously, this was something that was important to him. And by the way, it wasn't so much about the money, it was about how we use it. Just recently on Facebook, there was a post, and these aren't in my notes, Linda, this is a bonus feature. On Facebook, somebody posted about the problem with churches is money is the root of all evil. And so why is it the church is asking for donations and whatnot? Money is the root of all evil. Is that true? No. What does the passage actually say? The love of money is the root of all evil. You see, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. If you want to see how somebody is truly living their lives and what truly is important with them, look at their checkbook. You can see right where things are important to somebody by how they are spending their money. So for Christ, it wasn't so much the money, but it's how we are spending it. Which leads to the Apostle Paul and our passage this morning. Paul is writing to the church at Corinth, and he's talking about a need for some money to build churches in Macedonia. Now, Macedonia is kind of like in eastern Greece, western Turkey, that area and around there. And so they're building churches much like we do today. I mean, there's church growth. And so Paul is writing about the need for funds. And evidently the church at Corinth had given money a year before, and he's talking about that and the need for it. But he starts out with the foundation. You have a faith in Christ Jesus. You have a faith, and out of that faith you have given. And he acknowledges this. He's very grateful for it. Out of that faith you are given. In fact, you excel at giving, continue to excel at it. He then goes on to say, and by the way, Jesus, who had everything, gave up everything to become poor so that you may become rich. Did you catch that in the scripture? He gave up everything to become poor so that you may become rich. And then he closes with a powerful statement. If the willingness is there, then the gift is acceptable. If the willingness is there, then the gift is acceptable. Let's take those apart and see what Paul was really talking about. First of all, Paul is coming out with a foundational statement. If you're following Jesus Christ, if you believe in Christ, then you are to and you will excel at giving. His beginning point is, do we believe in Jesus Christ? Are we followers of Jesus Christ? Then if we are truly followers of Jesus Christ, other things are going to flow naturally from it. Some folks get that reversed. Some folks give money in order to gain favor. They give money because if I do give lots of money where I do lots of good things, that's going to make God happy with me. Well, I don't think it displeases God. But does that really gain favor? One of the most fundamental tenets of Protestantism is we first believe. And it's out of believing that we give. By the way, if we even set aside, which you can't do on Sunday morning, the Bible, and you go and you talk to development officers in any college or any hospital or any large organization, how do you get somebody to give money to a large organization? Get them to be invested, as in with their body, mind, and spirit, in the mission of that organization, and then they will donate money. They don't start by giving money or time or talent. They start out by first wanting it and liking it and supporting it. So Christ and Paul, what they're saying here is, do we believe in Jesus Christ? Do we love God? And if we do, everything else grows from it. Some of you remember a number of years ago, some of you are too young, you won't remember. I think it was President George H.W. Bush who came out with a program, the 5 and 5 program. Any of you remember that? He suggested that you give 5% of your income to a charity of your choice. And then you donate 5 hours a week to any organization. But give 5% and 5 hours a week, every week, to help the world around you. And his point was, if every American in the United States gave just 5%, he's ignoring the tithe, just 5% and 5 hours a week, how much different would the world be? Wow. Oh, huge difference. Just if we did 5 and 5. Anybody remember J.C. Penney? You ever shopped in J.C. Penney? Jacques Penney. Yes. J.C. Penney. Well, he's long since dead and gone. J.C. Penney was a very devout Christian, happened to be a Methodist, and might warm the hearts of a few people here. Anyhow, he was a Methodist, and he gave 40% of his income away. And the way he did it, by the way, was always in cash. Could you just imagine the look on the counters when they got $1 million in cash on a Sunday morning? By the way, I do need to point out that Jim Wilson is capable of carrying out the tray if someone puts $1 million in cash in it. Right, Jim? You got it. That's fine. Zach will help him if need be. But He put it in cash because he didn't want anybody to know who was giving it like they didn't know. But he gave it in cash. And why 40%? Penny used to remark that the first 10% was my tithe. That's what I was required to give. The next 30% was me saying thank you. I can't do anything else, but I have the financial resources. I will give freely. But it's not the money. That's not what it's about. It's about the giving of themselves. How do people feel? Come on, there are a number of you who volunteer at the food pantry on Mondays. How do you feel at the end of the day, other than tired and hot? How do you feel at the end of the day after you volunteer? Fabulous. How do you feel at the end of the day when you've been in there with the Super Kids Clubs and you helped some of those kids figure out this thing they call new math? It's a miracle. You see, there's an odd thing, and it's been studied in psychology. It's proven. The more we give of ourselves, the better we feel. The more we help others, the better our lives are. Those who give, who donate, who spend time caring and loving for others have a lower rate of depression, a lower rate of suicide, and they live longer in life than those who do not help others. Giving of ourselves actually gives us something. But if we're doing it to get, we're never going to get it. We do it to give in our response to the love of God through Christ. But then it goes on to say in Paul's letter to Corinth that Jesus became poor so that we may become rich. What did Jesus have? I would argue the opposite. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, John 1. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. That means Jesus is fully God. What did God make? Everything. Christ is fully God and is part and parcel of everything. It's all His. By the way, how much do we really own? Let me ask you a question. When you die, how much goes with you? I've got even better news. You get to leave as much behind as Howard Hughes. So you get to leave all of it, just like him. And some people got it, okay. But you see, God has it all. God had everything. It's His. And when we're dead and gone, it's left behind. Yet, what did Jesus Christ do? He came to the world, lived, taught, healed a few people, and He dies on a cross. He dies so that we may be rich, so that we may have life, we may have a promise of eternity, we may have a promise of a heaven, that we have wealth beyond compare. Not money that you have in a bank, not money that you're going to leave behind when you die, but a life and a wealth that lasts into eternity. When we were in Colorado this last week, we stopped at Focus on the Family. Beautiful facility in Colorado Springs, magnificent. And spent a little time there, and I bought a little book. And I was reading it on the airplane yesterday, and it's written by a pastor who's in his late 80s and by his son who's in his 50s, and talking about how do you live the last half of your life as a Christian. How do you live the last half of your life as a Christian? And in it, the older gentleman said, you know, one of the problems is as we grow older, we begin to talk less about the future, and we talk more about the past. And his argument was, but you're a Christian. Why are you talking so much about the past? Because regardless of our age, we've got a future. That if we're like Hal Reiser, who's 99 and a half years old, there is still a future to talk about. There is still something to look forward to. And by the way, that makes us rich. Which leads to the final point of Paul. You see, he said, it's not just limited to what we give, but rather what's in our hearts. It's if the willingness is there, then the amount we give doesn't matter. Any of you familiar with the widow's mite? Story of the widow's mite? What happens in that story? There's a wealthy man goes down and puts a whole lot of money in, right? And as he's throwing a whole lot of money in, wants a lot of attention. And he's going to get it. Do we know anybody in the world like that today? They want a lot of attention for the money that they are giving. Have any of you noticed any? Okay, I'll pick on one. I'm from Pittsburgh. Yeah, black and gold. By the way, they lost last night 3-2. There's still hope. But anyhow, there's a big school in Pittsburgh. And if you've got some gray hair, you'll notice Carnegie Tech. Not Carnegie Tech, by the way. Carnegie is in New York. That is not the correct pronunciation. Andrew Carnegie is from Pittsburgh. We're outside of Carnegie, Pennsylvania. Anyhow, Carnegie Tech. Who started Carnegie Tech? This is easy. Andrew Carnegie. Give the gal a cute deal. Okay. Andrew Carnegie got his name put on it because he gave so much money. Then they started to have problems in the 1960s. They needed money. So they went to the Mellons. Mellons gave them money. Now it's now known as Carnegie Mellon University because they wanted their name. Give you money? Put our name on it. There are colleges. There are universities. There are seminaries. There are hospitals down the street. There are parks. JetBlue Park. CenturyLink Athletic Facility and Stadium and all that down there. They all want their name attached to it. They want their name attached to it. But what's Paul saying? It's the widow's mite thing. It's not about how much we have. It's not about gaining attention. The widow very quietly goes up and drops in very little, but it's all that she could afford. And she wanted no attention. And what did Jesus say about the widow? Ah, there is someone with whom God will show favor. Which, by the way, always, to me, tells me we need to be very careful how we spend the money in the church. We need to be very careful how we spend every dollar. To turn off the lights, to turn off the air conditioning. Why? Because there are widows in this congregation who give very liberally of the little that they have, and by golly, we need to take good care of it. I remember an adoption agency that Jim and I served on. Grandma Holt used to go around at the end of the meetings and she'd collect all the cashews at the end of the meeting and take them home. She said, somebody paid for those. Let's not throw them out. You see, the widow's mite wasn't about how much she gave, but what was in her heart. And by the way, it's not about our money and how much we give. It is about what we do with us. How are you doing in your giving? How are you doing, not just in your financial giving, how are you doing in your giving of time and talent? How are you sharing the love of Jesus Christ with the world around you? How are you at giving freely of yourself? It's not how much we have to give that matters. It's what's in here. Let me close with it. It's very simple. If you have faith in Jesus Christ, then giving just naturally flows from it. And by the way, we are already rich. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how poor you are in terms of your checkbook. We are already rich. When we die, we get to go to heaven. We've got a future. By golly, it makes us wealthy, doesn't it? And furthermore, we've got brothers and sisters in Christ who love us and walk with us and will even laugh with us when we forget to serve communion at the 8 o'clock service. You see, we are wealthy. We are rich beyond compare. The give of yourselves, for God indeed loves a cheerful giver. It's not about the money, though. It's about everything we have. Thanks be to God.